Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about France and Ukraine and instructors and sheep. Well, really, the lack of sheep, because that's what's interesting. And that part isn't really being talked about in the coverage, and it's the most important part because it gives us some insight beyond just the news. So, if you missed the news, France has indicated that they will be sending instructors to Ukraine. The news also suggests that there are other members of NATO that are considering it, and the rumor mill says there's even more that are considering it than what's mentioned in the coverage. Now, the fact that instructors, advisors, observers, whatever you want to call them, might be headed to Ukraine, that's not interesting because realistically, that's probably been happening ever since the quote international volunteers started showing up. We talked about it at the time because that was the perfect cover to send covert forces into Ukraine to assist. Would never be admitted. You can't prove that despite some less than ideal statements from military brass. That's not something you're going to be able to prove. But odds are, as soon as the international volunteers started showing up, and there was that giant PR blitz talking about them, from that point forward, you had covert Western forces helping in Ukraine. The interesting part is not that France is looking at doing this or is doing this. It's that they're not sheep dipped. Sheep dip is a term. It has nothing to do with sheep, nothing to do with dipping sheep into something, and nothing to do with agriculture, unless you're talking about the other farm, the one in Virginia. It's a term that it references a process by which military or intelligence assets are civilianized. That they are no longer part of the military, they are no longer part of the intelligence community. Wink, wink. Okay? That is how covert forces were probably introduced after the international volunteers showed up. They weren't part of the West. They weren't part of those militaries. They were volunteers that just so happened to still be, getting paid and earning promotions. So the news itself isn't really that big of a deal from a strategic level. It's about geopolitics. From a military level, this doesn't matter. It's probably not changing anything. But on the geopolitical scene, it's a giant signal. It's telling Putin, the West isn't leaving Ukraine. We have developed 5-year plans to make sure that they're armed. We're setting aside the budget and the funding to do that. We're putting our own troops officially in. So, either do a mobilization and be ready for the civil issues that will occur at home, leave, or accept, Mr. Putin, that this war will be going on even once you're gone, because you're too old to see the end of it. That's the signal that's being sent by this. That if they continue, that Russia will be in a forever war. That's what's going on. That is way more interesting than France officially sending troops. Because, again, realistically, that's probably already been happening. They were just regular guys rather than official military. So it will be interesting to see how many Western nations sign on to this. Or if there is a lot of opposition to them doing it officially. It will give us some insight into how unified NATO is in this stance. But given their move to Trump-proof, for lack of a better word, assistance to Ukraine, I feel like there's not going to be a lot of resistance to this. Maybe some statements saying, oh, it's an escalation or whatever, but I don't think it's going to be very stiff. It's a signal more than anything else. The important part is not that France will be sending uniformed French troops. The important part is the West is telling Putin, get out or you're not going to be able to. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.